Okay, hi everybody. This is the next video experiment. I have a website. I've put everything into it. Perhaps it might help you to simply listen. This is going to be updated. So even if you've been here, it's worth checking in every now and then and seeing what's changed. Okay, so today we're going to look at the social cognitive learning approach. Why does the social cognitive learning approach matter? The reason why this approach matters is because it is so comprehensive, so widely used, and so useful. You will recognize it in education, social planning, business, counseling, coaching, and many more disciplines. You will also see it quite often in pop psychology. Okay, it allows for the freedom of people to act according to their own will and choices, and also takes into consideration social constraints and influences and lack of choice and influences on why people behave the way they do. These are examples of some of the books that are influenced by this theory. Okay, the social cognitive learning approach is essentially behavioristic because it's about behavior. It focuses on observable behavior and it focuses on how behavior is learned. But it explains behavior in terms of perception and intention. So the perception part originates from Gestalt psychology, which is all about the whole being greater than the parts, and phenomenology, which is about consciousness. Okay, and the subjective experience of the world and your place within it. Okay, there are three main theorists who created this theory, who worked on it basically for a lifetime for much of the 20th century and into the 21st century. They all lived to a ripe old age. The first person is Julian Rotter. He lived until the age of 98. He was born in 1916. He was heavily influenced by the Great Depression, in which his father lost everything. He lived in Brooklyn and New York at the time. The next person is Albert Bandura. He was the son of a Canadian farmer. He lived in a little town. He became highly acclaimed as an academic. He wrote, I saw in one place he published 23 books were available from him. I don't know if that's as many as he could have published more, I don't know. And they look interesting. Okay, next person after that was Walter Mischel. He built on everybody else's theories and added to them substantially. He lived until he was 85 years old. He was born in Austria and had to flee because of Nazi Germany when he was 9 years old. So you're looking at a slow... These people worked together and developed their theories partially together and partially independently. Okay, so Julian Rotter, he came up with social learning theory. So we haven't got the word cognitive in here yet. Okay, and what he said is that subjective expectations and values matter more than the environment in social learning. There's an internal or external locus of control. Locus means place. So do you control your life and what happens to you from inside you, internally, inside? Or is it something that just happens to you through chance, luck, that you have no control over? Okay, and how you look at it will affect how it in turn affects you and what you can do in the world. It's a little oversimplified, but there is a YouTube video here to explain it. Okay, Albert Bandura, social cognitive learning theory. So we have the word cognitive in here now. Behavior is the result of interactions between the environment, the person, and the behavior itself, and it all interacts, and this is called reciprocal determinism. Imitation or observational learning is key to understanding how people learn. Walter Mischel expanded and developed social cognitive learning theory. Okay, He expanded the interactional approach, the reciprocal determinism. He went into it in more detail. He looked at the role of expectations and self-control as major factors. This is a video on the marshmallow experiment. Unfortunately, it is a commercial, but it was the best of the shorties that I could find. Okay, here's the UNISA assignment. It's 5 questions. Guess it before you study, and then go back and look and see if you got it right and what you needed to learn in order to get it right. There's just a cute video. Okay, social cognitive theory and human nature. The environment plays a role, but so do people's decisions and choices. So there's a lot about human agency. Okay, reciprocal determinism means that behavior is determined by the interaction between the person, the situation, and the behavior itself. So the results of this behavior feed back into what the person is going to do. It's a triangle: person, situation, behavior, and they all feed into one another. Okay, reactions are specific to the combination of these 3. People are not passive black boxes like in hardcore behaviorism, where they're almost like little machines. They are active. They perceive and they interpret stimuli. They set goals and plans. They judge their past actions and replan and change their behavior all the time. Okay, there's a lovely little video where you can hear Albert Bandura talking about the core of his theory. Okay. Is personality structured? Okay, so for Freud, structure was everything. It was all about structure, conflict, and determinism, and tragedy and drama. Okay, but the social cognitive learning approach is, you can tell just from the name, it's social. You can take that as environment, part of the environment. Cognitive, it's all about observation, planning, control, judgment, making choices, making decisions, assessing. Okay. Coming up with opinions. Learning, constantly changing behavior according to outcomes, situation, and personal variables. And the approach, okay, how you're going to understand behavior in terms of personal variables, which are also called behavior personality functions. Okay, variables just means things that may be different, like X, Y, Z. Those are all variables, okay, in math. Okay, so what drives personality functions such as motivation, interaction with others, and learning? In other words, we are products of our interaction with the environment around us. We learn to create our personality functions and our traits. You can learn to become methodical. You can learn to become lazy. Okay? People are motivated by the interaction. So personality functions are motivated by the interaction between individual and situation. Okay, and that's from the textbook, which please read the textbook. And behavior is motivated by expected results. In other words, when you behave, when you act in certain ways, because you have a goal. It's not by drives, which Freud hypothesized, which forced you to act. In this case, you choose to act because you have a goal in mind. Okay, 2 types of learning: from your own experience and from observation of the experience of others. Okay, I thought there were 3. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, this is social learning theory. It's very cute. Results that drive learning and behavior: external rewards and internal rewards. Okay, self-mastery being a major one. Positive self-evaluation, self-mastery, making decisions about what you want to be and how. Okay. All right. Individual capabilities. Bandura stated individuals have various capabilities. These capabilities underlie their functioning in response to that triad of reciprocal determinism between person, situation, and behavior. So we have a symbolizing capacity. We can think abstractly. We can think in symbols. This is absolutely necessary for everything that follows. Okay, we can't, to reflect, plan, communicate, influence, share, communication, information, culturally, accumulate knowledge as a civilization and as a species, through oral traditions, through writing, through art, through heritage. Okay, forethought capability, we can plan ahead. Vicarious capability, we can learn through others' experience. These are not necessarily only in humans. Actually, when I look at this, possibly symbolizing to the greatest degree, self-regulatory capability. You can live by your own standards and you can control and manage yourself according to your own choices and decisions and actions. Self-reflective capability, you can have a self-image, you can evaluate yourself, and you can create a perception of your own self-efficacy. I can do anything I set my mind to. I'm really not very good at studying for exams. Okay, here are some of the titles of books that he wrote. The other one's edited. Okay, Self-efficacy, the exercise of control. I'm sure you can get these books from archive.org. I'll put a link into this webpage at some future point. Aggression looks very interesting. Moral disengagement looks very interesting. And spirit, science, and health look very interesting. So it's worth checking those books out. Okay. Self-efficacy. Are you effective as a person? Okay, so you can be highly self-effective, so have a high level of self-efficacy, or a low level of self-efficacy. So this has got a lot to do with, are you actually going to even try to do something? Do you have the courage and the confidence to attempt a task? What choices are you going to make? Are you going to go to do a PhD? Are you going to just get through high school and get a job at KFC? Okay. Do you think you stand a chance? Okay. So if you have a high degree of self-efficacy, you'll be more motivated and persistent in attempting to get control of the situation. You think, of course, I can do this. Okay, so you've got a better chance of success. If you think that you're not very good at stuff and you don't think you're going to pull it off, you're not going to be motivated, because who wants to feel like a failure? You're not going to give up quickly, because you're going to say, well, that was what I expected anyway. And therefore, you're going to fail more, and this is going to give you a lower feeling or perception of self-efficacy, which will then give you more failure and so on. But it's not so simple. Okay, this person is Claude Steele. He talks about racial or stereotype threat. And although this video just talks about women, it does go into race as well. In his studies, they actually found that the more dedicated people were more poorly affected by negative stereotypes. So situation does have a very big role to play in self-efficacy as well, and behavior, of course. So it all feeds into itself. Okay, Walter Mischel, his personal variables, personality functions. Okay, so each person changed the names a little bit. In this case, he called these things cognitive, social, person variables. But we can actually just think of them as mainly capabilities, okay? So he added some more to these. He said encoding strategies, how people encode or interpret situations, how they make sense of it, okay? How they structure their understanding of it. Expectancy, what results do you expect? Subjective values, what's important to you personally. Self-regulating systems and plans, how you do things, how you think through things, very culturally specific often. Competencies, what can you do? In short, different capabilities means that people can do things well, badly, or differently from one another. It's pretty obvious, okay? All right. How people learn. All behavior is learned. People learn actively. There are 3 forms of learning. Remember, Bandera just had 2 forms. Here there are 3. Direct, vicarious, and self-reinforcement and self-punishment. So we teach ourselves, we learn from the environment directly, or we learn by observing others. Okay, here we go. So direct, it's reinforcement. You could think of as a kind of reward, something that makes you do it more. Direct punishment, making you do it less. You do something and there's a consequence. It's direct. Okay. It is a cognitive process because you actually have to pay attention. If you don't even notice something bad has happened, it's not going to impact on your behavior. You have to notice it. Then you predict, oh, it's going to happen again. You think about it and you go, okay, maybe I won't do that anymore. Or you think, oh gosh, that was nice. I want to do that again. Why did that happen? So it's, people are intelligent and they do respond proactively through each of these steps. Okay, vicarious reinforcement, this or observational learning. Very, very, very important in this theory. It's key. Okay. You see someone else do something and then you see what happens to them. So this is a social kind of a learning. It happens through modeling, which you see a lot of. Every textbook is full of modeling. People may choose to do the opposite of what they observe as well. Like, oh gosh, he's such a square little kid. I don't want to be like him. I'm not going to study like him. So imitation, when you do what you see, counter imitation, when you don't do what you see. Paying attention is directly connected to retention of information, as anyone who's taught knows or studied. Reproduction is actually doing the same behavior as observed, which is not always a necessary consequence of learning. Okay. All right. Then finally, there's self-reinforcement and self-punishment. You reward or punish yourself for your behavior. This could be internal, like, oh my God, what an idiot. Why did I do that? Or it could be external. I have lost so much weight, I'm going to go out and get an ice cream. Okay. Observational learning. Now, this is key for education. So when we look at this, you'll see there's a lot of thinking about education in this part. It's not just for understanding human behavior, but for regulating it and molding it. Okay. So let's break it down. The nature of the behavior that is being modeled. Okay. Is it new? Was it familiar? Is it entertaining or is it boring? Does it come with information in advance? Now everybody watch this, or doesn't it? Is it morally acceptable? Is it easy? Is it complex? Okay, who's doing it? Is it a movie star or is it a bergie? Is it somebody who's really stylish and young, or is it an old lady who's you don't relate to? Is it a man or a woman? Is it someone who's entertaining? Or is it somebody who is not so charming? Is it someone you relate to and think, oh, this person is just like me? Or is it someone that you feel somewhat alienated from and see as another, someone from a different culture maybe? Okay. Characteristics of the observer. All right, so who is learning? Who is observing the modeling that's happening? Are we looking at a bright young thing who was first in class, ready to go ahead and get her doctorate? Or are we looking at someone who drops out of school half the time and is a part-time gangster already? What are their motivations? What are they interested in? What are their values, self-confidence, and so on and so on? What did they have for breakfast? Okay, what are the results of the behavior that's being modeled? Is it being punished or rewarded? This is again interpretation, because it used to be sometimes it's very high status to get sent to the headmaster for the cool guys. So it's like a reward for being so tough. But if they're going to come out looking like they've just been crying and freaking out, then it's not going to be a reward. It's going to be a punishment. So it depends on partially the interpretation and partly the outcome. Okay. Here you can see dogs learning from observation, which is very interesting and shows it's not just humans that do this. Okay. Right, so both reward and punishment are actually great for retaining information, but to reproduce behavior, obviously people are going to do things that can get rewarded more than they're going to do things that are punished. Although there is some evidence to show that even behavior that's punished, if it's modeled, will be done. Modeling is very powerful. Assessment of outcomes is also obviously relative to, are you rich or poor? How much is 10 Rand to you? Okay. Imitation and counter-imitation. It isn't like we are so dumb that we can only do exactly what we see. We are able to apply rules and generalize. So a child who witnesses a lot of cruelty may become violent. So it's also aggression. A person who sees a lot of compassion and kindness is going to do that possibly in a different way. They're not going to be baking cakes like mom, but he or she will do something else that is kind and generous. Okay, and of course, self-efficacy has a direct effect on the ability of a person to learn from observation. The more confident, you're going to steal your eyes, you feel like you can do this, you're going to learn well. If you think, oh, car, I don't know anything about cars, you're not going to learn very much about cars. Okay. So self-regulation is the most important form of learning. Okay, that's important for the exams. Okay, this is the book about self-regulation, the marshmallow test, and this is the book by Walter Mischel, Why Self-Control is the Engine of Success. All right. Optimally effective people have a realistic self-efficacy perception. This is also for exams. Realistic self-efficacy perception. Know yourself. Know what you can do, know what you can't do, know what you can control, what you can't control. Unlike most people who feel that they are above average, a person who is optimally aware will know that they are probably not above average. They're probably average in some ways and below average in others. Okay. Views on psychopathy. Okay, so here the emphasis is naturally on learning because this is about learning and it's relating to lack of self-efficacy, and various combinations of personal variables are involved in various pathologies. So they tend to underplay built-in organic problems of the brain and so on, but they can look at certain variables and say, those variables go with that condition. For example, depression will be linked to global thinking, not just specifics. Everybody hates me. Stability, they always have hated me. Okay, and internal locus, not because of them, but because of me, because of who I am. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but so that's how people look at those different pathologies, is in terms of those kinds of criteria, which is all useful, practical application and use. Okay, so it's everywhere, it's useful. Because if you think this is what causes depression, it gives you ways of working with it. For example, with depression, you do use cognitive reframing. Not everybody hates you, only a few people, not everybody. Do they always hate you? No. When you were a baby, no one hated you. And so on and so forth. So reframing, modeling, showing people, oh yeah, this is Bob. He got better from depression. This is what he did to do it. And he's very happy now. He's living a good life. Self-regulation. What can you do to help yourself when you get depressed? Okay. So we use these tools all the time. They're tried and tested and very useful, which tells you something about the theory, that it's actually very useful and solid. Psychological tests tend to be situational. Later on, we'll talk about some of the wonderful people and their situational research. It's fascinating about what makes people tick, but that's not here right now. Dan Ariely is what I'm thinking about. Okay, so then aggression. This has been used for aggression. There is an innate instinctive ability to be aggressive, of course, like all creatures, but it's also learned and mainly learned, rewarded, modeled by others, provoked and reproduced, depending on the person, situation, and the results of previous behavior, and how little children can land up being soldiers of war is a clear validation of this. Okay. All right, so that is the end of this.